Hey, what's up everyone? It's now been about 2 weeks since I took the GMAT Focus Exam, and I want to talk about it. So if you've been subscribed to this channel for a while now, you know that I've been studying and working towards this GMAT Focus Exam for the last several months. Business school is still a few years out for me, but I really wanted to take the exam now while I felt that I had the time so that I could then focus on the other aspects of my business school application. The score does last for 5 years, so that gives me a little bit of flexibility. My studying for the GMAT exam went through a lot of twists and turns. First, I switched jobs and decided I wanted to commit to that before diving back into studying for the GMAT. And then shortly after that, the GMAT announced that they were releasing a new version of the exam that kind of changed the way that I would study. So I then shifted gears to focus on that. But with that new exam, it only then came out later on in the year. So that kind of elongated the timeline. And the first day the exam was available was November 7th, which is the day that I took it. So that is kind of a quick synopsis as to why it seems like I've been studying for this for the longest time. Trust me, I'm the first to admit that I probably didn't go about it the right way, but I took the exam now and I want to talk about my experience doing that and what the next steps are, because I do plan on taking the exam again. So first, I just want to talk about the exam in general. I'm not going to go in depth into the differences between the old GMAT and the new GMAT. There's plenty of other videos about that, even some that I have made. I just want to talk about my experience. And I think the great aspect of the GMAT is that they offer 6 official practice exams. And from my experience, those practice exams were very similar to the actual exam, which is really nice just because they are official. They're coming directly from the source. So I did feel that the content was relatively similar. I mean, obviously, the way the exam is structured, it is going to be different every single time. And the way it's adaptive, each of the questions is kind of based on your performance on the last. So naturally, there will be some variation. But overall, I felt relatively prepared because I had gone through the 6 practice exams. I knew exactly what the layout of the page was going to be, what it would look like, kind of how the exam would operate. So I was very grateful for that. Also, I did opt to take the exam here online instead of in a testing center, just because I knew that then I could simulate kind of the testing environment as normally as I could. And just living here in New York, I thought inevitably so many things could go wrong if I had to travel to a testing center. I just didn't want to have to put that stress on exam day. So I did take the exam right here in my apartment, which is super convenient. Also works really well with my busy schedule. And as I mentioned, allowed me to kind of practice taking the other exams, the practice exams, in the same setting that I would take the actual exam. I think was super helpful. But with all of that said, I really just think the anxiety and the stress of exam day kind of hindered my performance. And I say that by now going into kind of my score report. So overall, I got a 615 on the GMAT Focus exam. If you're familiar with kind of the scoring breakdown of the prior GMAT exam, this is very different. This is probably around a 680 in terms of the scaling on the last exam. Overall, this is an 80th percentile, so still, pretty good overall, but definitely not where I want to be scoring. The overall score breakdown, I'll move over here so you can see it a little bit better. 96th percentile on the verbal reasoning, which was pretty much anticipated. I've always scored well in the verbal section. 86 on data insights, and then the shortcoming, obviously, is a 46th percentile on the quant section. This is why I really want to just take the exam again. Quant has always been where I've come up short, but of the 6 practice exams I took, I think only 1 practice exam I was worse than 46th percentile. On the best practice exam, I got 76th percentile on the quant. So I know I am capable of performing so much better than I did. And even looking at the other sections, I mean, realistically speaking, the 96th on the verbal section, that's the lowest percentile I scored of all of the practice exams. I scored higher than a 96th percentile on a handful of them. So I know I can do better there. Also, the 86th percentile on data insights, that also is the lowest I scored of any practice exam. So I know that that can be better. And so that's why it was just very disappointing for me to kind of just come up short in all three sections. So that is why I want to take the exam again. And I'm going about it in a little bit of a different way. I'm going to take it in just a few short weeks. And I'm not putting as much pressure on myself to go through all the practice problems and do all of that. Fortunately, I've already taken every single practice exam, so there's really only so much I can do. But I just want to take it again so that I can get the score that I know I'm capable of scoring. I want to give myself a second chance because I put in so much effort, and I feel like this just isn't a good representation of where my skills truly are. I mean, realistically, I took a practice GMAT exam like 6 months ago, and I think I scored like a 78th percentile. So me ending up with an 80th really just makes me feel like the last 6 months weren't worth it. And I definitely put in a lot of time and effort. And fortunately, I know obviously what I need to improve on. I mean, the quant is right there. It's very clearly obvious that that is what my weakness is. But again, I also just know that me being comfortable and confident going in with the verbal and the data insights will also just help me score better. I mean, the differences here makes a difference. You know, if I could get up to a 98th percentile in verbal and 92nd percentile in data insights, you know, even with still scoring a 46th in quant, that makes a really big difference in the overall composite score. And, you know, that's why I just want to take this again, because I came up short in all three sections and I just know I'm better than that. So what do I think went wrong? Honestly, I was just really stressed on exam day. I mean, obviously I've put a lot of pressure on myself to perform well. I had a score in mind that I wanted to score, so just a lot of pressure. Also, and this is totally my fault, my desk wasn't ready. I thought that I was able to take the exam with a monitor on my desk and everything else cleared off, but through different variations with the proctor, it was determined that that was not the case, and so I had to spend a lot of time then clearing my desk and removing my monitors and doing this and that delayed kind of the start time. And I was just naturally frustrated because, you know, I thought that it was one way and it wasn't. So that delayed probably the exam by 30 or 40 minutes. So that was also kind of weighing over me and, you know, wasn't the best way to start the exam. But again, like I said, that was my fault, and now is something I know going into the second exam to make sure that is all taken care of and good. Also, just now that I have a baseline score, I mean, worst case scenario, I have to cancel this next score exam that I take. Okay, then I end up with an 80th percentile. I can't complain about that. I can always take the exam again. But like I said a million times already, I just know I'm capable of scoring higher, and whether I do that or not, I just want to give myself a chance to do that. So now that I've talked about the exam and taken a historical perspective on it, let's talk about what I plan to do to improve in the future. So like I said, I've already gone through the 6 practice exams and done tons of practice problems already. So I don't really want to focus too much on the actual practice. It's more so the performance. And so what I'm gonna do is just work through GMAT's official quant review. I think there's about 150 practice problems, and it's just a comprehensive review on the quant material. I don't really need to spend much time at all on verbal or data insights. That's all good. It just comes down to me showing up to deliver how I know I can perform. So I'm just gonna kind of take it a little bit easy with the quant, not put too much pressure on myself, you know, to grind for 2 hours every single day, because I think that's kind of just what built up that stress. So I'm kind of taking a different perspective with this, and you know, by the time I finish through that review, I'm just gonna take the exam. I am super grateful that the GMAT and the GMAT offers so many resources for the exam. They do also have a review for the verbal section as well as the data insight section. These reviews go deeper into each of those sections and provides more practice problems. Also, in addition to the reviews, they also have additional practice problems that you can purchase. So there really are so many options and resources there available to you. And of course, that's just what's offered through the official GMAT, which you got to trust a little bit more since it is official. Those are the people making the exam. So I just kind of trust that that'll be the most accurate representation of the exam questions. So that's my plan to improve. We'll see what really happens. I think it's more so just about the mentality and feeling comfortable and confident in the exam and not putting too much pressure on myself. And yeah, we'll see. That's the point of this, is you really never know what's going to happen. But I want to give myself the opportunity to just improve and not have any regrets. And I think that is certainly what I'm doing in deciding to take this exam again. So I look forward to bringing you guys along for the ride. You've already seen the process from start to whatever stage we're in now. So I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. As always, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.